All right. We're live from 304 Studios in Jonesboro, Arkansas.
No, you
It's the
messed it up.
STS Pod Club production. Man, you were doing the wrong thing. This is our top stories.
I
Oh
get
well,
so
I guess you
confused.
could. You could. You could.
It's
Let me
kind of
shut
a
up, Jenna. Here we go.
countdown.
Let's try it one more time.
Top
Live
10
from Jonesboro.
news.
And we're live, by the way, tonight. We're not kayfabing anybody. We really are live. So
Right
if you're
now.
watching us on Facebook or Twitter, uh, instead of watching television, you should be watching us. I mean,
Yeah.
what the
You
hell?
can always
Uh,
TiVo Impact,
yeah. But I tell you what, I'm BT, and this guy over here, he can never be accused of wearing too much lipstick. That's right. He is from Chicago, the home of the best damn pizza in the world. He is the snark of excellence, my partner in crime. He is Lance Levine. How the hell are you, Lance?
I just got that last of that lipstick off. I mean, geez. I'm
Never,
trying
never will I accuse you of wearing too
to
much.
never pattern myself after any Impact executives or anything. So we're in the Starry Studios here in Chicago. Starry, the new Pepsi drink. I can't wait to try it. I got one chilling in my fridge right now.
Awesome. I want to hear the
sponsored us
news. I
tonight.
want to hear
Yep.
the news.
It took the place of Sierra Mist. That's what I'm told. So
Oh,
we'll have to
that's
see.
probably the same damn thing. They just changed.
They just changed the label exactly. So
All right, real quick, a few things. If you're
some
in the Memphis
business.
area,
We got business.
business in the Memphis
Business.
area on Sunday.
That's
Blake
3 days
Christian.
from now. Yep.
That's
3
right.
days.
Blake Christian in Memphis
Ooh,
against
I
Aaron
like that.
Roberts. Woo,
Nice.
that's going to be good.
That's
It's going to be
a
real
barn
good.
burner.
James Ellsworth is challenging all the
Who?
women of Memphis Wrestling also.
Oh,
And if you're with us this past week, we already did one episode. We did the Brett Michaels show. It's not called the Brett Michaels show. It's called Memphis Wrestling Superstar. That's the name of it. That was episode 1. We asked 5 questions on the main feed, 3 extra ones on Patreon. And to join Patreon, go to www.stspod.club. In the right-hand counter, you got to say it right. Say counter, like they do in the South. In the counter, you can subscribe and you can help Lance get some more pork and beans.
yep.
Lance,
Ramen, pork and beans,
ramen, a little
hot
bit of
dogs.
everything. Starry row or whatever you got.
Those
there.
little rolling hot dogs at 7-Eleven, I like those too, because the bums can just walk in there and pick them up and eat them. So
I love that. I never thought about that. I'm gonna start doing that when I go to Come and Go. There you go. I'm just gonna grab a hot dog. All right, tell everybody what's up, man. What are we doing tonight?
It is the beginning of the year. It's January, so we have to go back and recap the top 10 news stories of 2022 because the year just ended. So we do this every year. I completely forgot about it, but we do this every year. You walked me through getting it ready. So we got it all prepared. We basically the top most important news stories of the year. This is not WTF because that's where I got confused. WTF, we have fun with that every single month with the top 10 weird stories of every month. But this is the real news stories. So we recap this and kind of give our spin on them. So
this is our 6th annual version of this.
Just goes to show,
So crazy.
Like my head was out of the game in January. So thank you for getting me back on track, BT.
You just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You had no idea what I was talking about.
I'm so focused on WTF that I was thinking.
Right.
Anyway,
all right, let's do it, man.
One of those. So every year, sadly, we start this list with the deaths and the passings of people from the wrestling world in 2022. So to me, I think the biggest one was Inoki. Antonio Inoki was probably the biggest death. Jean LaBelle was another one. Matilda the Hun. I'm going to go melt on you. Deanna Boer is Matilda the Hun from the original Glow. Tarzan Goto. Both Dave Hebner and Tim White, 2 referees that died within a few weeks of each other. Scott Hall, that was another big one. Sarah Lee, that was a tragic one. The girl who had won Tough Enough a couple years
very
ago.
much so, yeah.
Rocky King from your neck of the woods. And then most recently, Don West, which was a sad one.
Rocky King was from North Carolina. That's nowhere near Arkansas.
That's all the
My
South.
neck of the woods.
Yeah, all the South. So, and then Don West most recently. We had just said before we went on the air, they did a real nice piece on Don West on Impact last week. Never a bad word about Don West. He was one of those people
Were you there? Were you there during the Jarrett thing with Don West live or were you somewhere else when we were in Chicago?
I don't. Oh yeah, no, I was there. Yeah.
He
When
was
Don-
so
yeah.
awesome. He was
Yeah.
just so awesome. So Jeff said a lot of good things about him. I heard on the podcast. I haven't watched it or listened to it
Mhm.
yet, but he did say some stuff on Twitter too. Really good friend of his.
Yeah.
And if you read the Observer version of Don West, the whole thing is just for him getting into business is
Mhm.
just what kind of luck is what it was. He was not a
Mhm.
fan, and it's just a fun story. You never know how you get into the wrestling business. So, man, this is episode 135, a cool kids countdown. Like I
Amazing.
said, we won't do but about 10 of these shows, these cool kid shows, and then we'll find something else to do. But that's 135. Go ahead, man. Let's get started. Number 10.
All right. So we put our list together like we always do. We agreed on seven of the top stories. So those are our top 7. So 8, 9, and 10 are our random picks that the other guy didn't pick. So I have the evens, you have the odds because you're odd. We know that.
Yep.
So first one at number 10, we have Logan Paul in the WWE. That was my first pick that wasn't on your list. So guy is a huge star on YouTube. Just such a hateable prick. He comes across as such a hateable douchebag on YouTube and just in general. But WWE brings him in. They bring him in for Mania. He does well. He teamed with The Miz. Then the Miz turns on him, of course. Comes back, works against Miz at SummerSlam, and then works again with Miz somewhere else. I don't know where it was. But then he works again in this. Oh, it was SummerSlam. And then he works again with Roman Reigns at Blood Money.
Weren't you at SummerSlam?
I was, yeah.
Oh,
I had
wait,
the
yeah.
pay-per-views mixed up. So he does even better in the singles match with Reigns. And then he gets hurt. He's out for months now, but he signed a long-term deal, so he will be back. I question the forcing him on us as a face, but one thing that you cannot question is the way this guy took to the business took to the athleticism of doing the wrestling. So Logan Paul in WWE is my number 10 pick.
It's our number 10 pick. How's that? I agree with it. Logan Paul had a lot that photograph that he took was like the most viewed photo of the year. That kind of shows you I'm not as a big hater of Logan Paul on YouTube as a lot of people are. He's an asshole. We know that.
Pompous asshole.
He's real pompous, but I love how I love when you can do grassroots stuff and you make something big, and that's kind of what he did. His podcast is kind of fun to watch too. But him and another buddy always interview someone interested. But I like him. I think he's a natural. You see, we talk about naturals, and we've only seen a handful of them. Really, we have. You look at a guy like, and there's nothing against him. Dominic is his dad was Rey Mysterio. Or is Rey Mysterio, and he's got really good, but it took him working to get good.
Yeah.
Logan is just a complete natural. That was number 10.
Yep. Like I said, you cannot question the way he took to the wrestling aspect of it. He's a complete natural, but I would say he's so much more of a natural heel. We'll see.
Yes.
We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. So, all right, at number 9 is your first pick on the list. So it is the Bloodline dominating WWE all year. So Reigns combines both belts. He's been champ for like 12,800 days or whatever the fuck it is now.
13,000. Come on, get it right.
The Usos do the same thing with the tag belts. They overtake New Day for the longest reign in WWE history. They add in Solo Sikoa as the enforcer, which was interesting because he was a face on NXT and leaves the next day, basically goes to WWE as a heel. Immediately he's a heel. And the most surprising aspect of it to me is how Sami Zayn has been introduced into this whole act and how it's gotten over like crazy.
Huge
Just
over.
like crazy.
Over.
So, with Roman, you and I backed Roman from the beginning. I will go on record with us proudly that we've been a fan of his for years. But now they've kind of backed themselves into a corner because what do they do? I don't personally think anybody's ready to beat Roman for one of the titles. So, Theory, as much as they may want it to be Theory, it's not Theory. Could possibly be Cody. I don't know. But we'll see. But anyway, Bloodline dominating WWE is our number 9 pick.
One of the reasons I picked it was that you talk about no one saying a bad word about something. I have heard no one say, "Oh, I hate that angle. I hate the way they pushing Roman now." Even the Roman haters have come out and said, "Hey, this is perfect. This is the way." I love it when people say, "This is the way they should have been
Right.
Should have been pushing him. Come
Using
on,
him.
guys.
Yeah.
He was a huge baby face. We knew what was going to eventually happen with this whole bloodline. They keep adding people into the family. I absolutely love it. I feel Sami Zayn was just out of left field, and he's been such a big part. But the whole domination of the whole year, here's a wrestling story that got me and got other people back to watch a SmackDown every Friday night. And that's one of the big deals. I think that's the big story of it, is that everyone likes it, and it's drawing people to the TV show. So there you go.
Where does it go? What do? Do they split the belt somehow?
I know. I have no idea. I always, when they book like this, I feel like they're booking themselves in a corner, counter. Remember, in a corner, but how do you get out of it? Someone's, there's a couple ways, especially with the tag belts. You could have a couple of fluke losses. They're not champs anymore. With Roman, it's going to have to be someone big to pin him to win, in my opinion.
Cody's the only thing I can think
of. I like it. I like the idea, yeah.
Unless they go with The Rock somehow, some way, if that works out. But I think with the Usos, it has to be McIntyre and Sheamus. I think those guys have busted their asses for years in the company, and I think it almost becomes a merit badge and a thank you gift to them.
Oh, but I agree.
And that's a completely believable team that you could see winning.
Oh, and they're at the top of, man, Sheamus has always been good. He's always been stiff. But those two guys are at the top of their game right now. Both of them.
The stuff they've done with them, with Gunther. The stuff they've done with him has just been outstanding, too. So anyway, Bloodline dominating at number 9. Number 8 is my final pick before our merge. So it is Forbidden Door, opened on pay-per-view. So June 26th here in Chicago. The long-awaited collaboration between AEW and New Japan finally happens. It was a good show. It was a very good show. But there was definitely some disappointment. There were some injury misses, like Punk wasn't there. There were some other misses that weren't there. Did an okay buy rate. I think it should happen again, probably, because the buy rate was probably good enough to have it happen again. But the main thing is that it happened. Forbidden Door happened. And that that opens the door, if you will, for more collaborations between AEW and New Japan. So Forbidden Door taking place at number 8.
I agree with you. I don't agree with you. The reason I didn't put it on my list was mainly because it was almost a given that we were going to have a New Japan AEW show. And they kept saying we're going to do it. Then they did it. It really wasn't a big surprise to me. I thought it was a big deal. Don't get me wrong. It was fun. But to me, what would have been a really big surprise if WWE did one with New Japan? It doesn't surprise me AEW is doing it. I love the show. A fun show. It would be nice to have it as a pay-per-view every year when you could bring different guys in to do it. Right. So fun. I like number 8. I love the pay-per-view. So
yeah.
And it's with us both liking New Japan and both liking AEW. Then it gives us some dream matches too that we'd like to see. So
I mean there was that frosty relationship initially between AEW and New Japan. So I think it was a bit of a surprise that it eventually finally happened, So to your point though, WWE and New Japan working together, that would be a real shocker. So, but I'm glad it finally did happen, and it was a big story in my book. It was a big story for 2022. So, all right, number 7. This is where we start merging our list here. So we both actually had this story at number 7. So it's Sasha and Naomi walking out of WWE. Sasha had always been known as, I'm going to take my ball and go home. Great performer, a mainstay in the women's division. Naomi, forever underutilized, in my opinion. She's a good act, connects with the fans, athletic girl. Married to the Uso, which makes her more important in the big picture. I mean, say what you will about her as a wrestler, but being married to him adds to her importance into the business. So, again, I'm going Meltzer on you here. Mercedes Varnado and Trinity Fatu had been the tag champs. They go to Raw on May 26th. Storyline was them to face people they didn't want to face in a gauntlet, and then eventually face each other for the title shot. They hated the idea. They tossed the belts on the table and they walked out. They called them unprofessional on the air that night, and they stripped them of the tag titles. They didn't want to work with their opponents, and they didn't want to eventually work each other. Story to them, storyline made no sense. So now Sasha is Mercedes Moné. Naomi is still on ice, and here we are in January with no resolution on Naomi. But them walking out is the 7th biggest story of the year for us this year.
I think because there was so much it just us. I mean, we're talk about target audience. We really aren't the target, or not the target audience when it comes to wrestling and buying stuff. Even though we're hardcore, uh, but it was interesting to us too. It was we were texting back and forth. You
Mhm.
think it's a work? You think it's a shoot? That was our first thing, and when we did find out they actually did walk out, I was not always on Sasha's, either one of them's side,
Mhm.
really. With this, I can't say anything like you said with Miss Fatu there. How about that? She could be part of the bloodline. Come on, bring her, bring
There
her.
you go. Yeah.
And Sasha Banks is God. I believe what the WWE believed had put out about her, that her biggest nights and her biggest days have already happened, and she's on uh, a
The
trajectory
downside.
downward.
Yeah.
I really do. I don't. I think she can make a lot of money on independent, but as soon as
Yeah.
that new wears off, but she was a story. She was a huge, huge story. So
I think the story will be told with her match with Kyrie for New Japan and Stardom. We'll see. Let's see what she's capable of, and let's see the ring rust. Because she hasn't wrestled since May. But yeah, I think a big story, and it'll be interesting to see what plays out with Naomi too, because apparently she's still under contract at least for a while. But they'll extend it because of the missed time or whatever. So, but yeah, big story. I thought it was a really big deal. And to your point, you brought up a good memory there. The night that they walked out, and I'm watching it live, and Corey Graves calling them unprofessional and Michael Cole calling them unprofessional for leaving the building. I had people in the business texting me saying it was a work, 100% work. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of weirdness going on here. I don't know if this one is. And sure enough, it wasn't. So, all right, at number 6, let's see. We got Stone Cold returning for one more match. So you had it at number 6. I had it at number 8. It ends up at number 6. To up the star power of WrestleMania, Austin returns to work one more match with Kevin Owens in Dallas. Owens had months earlier started insulting Texans in his promos, so this drew out the Texas Rattlesnake to come back. They had a real good match. It was a perfect way to end night 1 of WrestleMania, perfect way to end Austin's career, if it is truly his last match. Started out as an episode of the KO show, turns into a no-holds-barred wrestling or fight that night. It was Austin's first match in 19 years. I didn't remember that it was 19
woo.
years since the guy had worked. He busted his ass, worked hard, won with a stunner. It was a great brawl. So Austin's return at number 6.
And that was one of our mania moments this year. Also, just we both was just wow. Look, this guy's our age. He's out
Yeah.
there doing everything he used to do. Have you
Yep.
seen a recent video of Stone Cold?
I've heard he's
Oh
jacked.
my God. So
Yeah.
he's real he's cut like crazy. So it looks like he's lost some weight and
Yep.
he's cut like crazy. So it'll be interesting if he's actually going to do another. He said he
Mhm.
did it because he looked like shit. So but it'll be interesting if he does another match. Stone Cold moment. I mean, I got right into that match. Just
Yeah.
big time. The
Yep.
brawl, it was just fun. I had a really good time with it. Thought it was big news in 2022.
Yep.
And you know what time it is? It's time for it's the best little. No, I'm sorry. What's not tell? Wait. We still got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1
Is it
commercial break for those
break?
listening to the audio. Remember, if you subscribe to Patreon, no commercials, and you also get our honorable mentions. So commercial break inserted. I'm inserting it right now, Lance.
Ugh,
I'm inserting
TMI?
it right here.
TMI. I'm gonna go
Brought
have
to-
a Kit Kat. Kit Kat.
Insert brought to you by spunklube.com.
Ugh.
All right, we're back. Remember, Sunday, Blake Christian against Aaron Roberts. I want to tell you something, Lance. I didn't know this, but Blake Christian is actually from this area and started on one of these little, I always make fun of the Memphis area promotions where they draw 25 people.
Right.
Well, apparently he started at one of those promotions and actually then went on to do he's kind of like the story that everyone needs to do in this area is leave and do something somewhere else. Him against Aaron Roberts is going to be really good. So tell me something. We're at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You got any shout outs?
Ed Bogus for beating me in fantasy football this year
Oh, he
because of
did.
the postponed game. He won I would have beaten him, but he won because of the postponed Buffalo Bills and Bengals game.
Well,
So,
don't say nothing like Skip did. It'll get you into all kinds of trouble here. So
I'm just saying, congrats, Ed, for winning this year.
All right, Ed.
I can't win. All it is.
Congratulations, Ed. Do you know the story behind fantasy baseball? The guy that actually invented fantasy baseball has never won.
Oh, it doesn't surprise me. The only one I've ever won is hockey, and it's one of the least known. I don't know anything about hockey.
Right.
I've won the season in that. So.
Anyway. Oh man, we played fantasy football with when we had to get stats out of the newspaper. I think the league that I helped start is right at 30 years old. It's crazy. All right, guys, let's quit talking about fantasy football. Go Cowboys!
You got stats out of the what?
Do what? The newspaper.
The what?
Newspaper.
Never heard of
Crazy,
it. Anyway,
huh?
All right. We are continuing the top 10 news stories of 2022. We're at number 5. It is not smut. It is the return of ROH, Ring of Honor. So the assets of Ring of Honor purchased by Tony Khan for about $4 million in March of this year, or of 2022. He gets thousands of hours of content for whatever network he might be putting together eventually, and also to use those clips for many of the AEW guys from their past. They promote ROH on Dynamite. They increase their pay-per-view buy rates. I know you're going to talk about that. But even with Tony's pull, they cannot get a TV deal. So he relaunches Honor Club for streaming. There's much weirdness about all of this. They add even more titles and belts onto AEW TV, which already has the Antarctic Oceanic belt and all that shit. So Tony, it's his toy. He wants to keep the library out of the evil empire's hands, basically. And that's why everybody's happy, because it kept the ROH library out of the WWE's hands. So the return of ROH is the 5th biggest story this year.
Yeah, and I mean, I think because they put it in front of us on AEW all the time, it made it real important to me. And it's also one of those, like you said, he it's the little guy finally he was such a big ROH fan that it would be like me. All of a sudden, I owned Memphis Wrestling. I owned all the old stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It was one of those things. The pay-per-views, the 3, which this does not surprise me, 3 most bought in the history of ROH was the 3 that they did. And believe it or not, the one in the afternoon was not the least bought one. It was number 2 on the list of pay-per-views. So there was actually people, and it has a lot to do with that time slot, with them being everybody watching AEW. I bet you if it was just an ROH pay-per-view and we didn't have any advertising from AEW, that 3 o'clock would have killed them. But the pay-per-views have been really good. They have, as AEW, they have so much good talent. Just fantastic pay-per-views from top, but ROH always had good pay-per-views. They always had maybe one throwaway match, but rest of them was really good. It'll be interesting because he's having a hard time doing this. Are people really going back to Honor Club and watching a streaming service? I see it, and I see $10, and I don't. To me, it's not worth $10. If it was $6.99, I might do it, but it's not worth $10 for me.
Yeah, but it's like you said, they get so much added publicity just being mentioned on AEW television, So, I mean, there's certain people that are such AEW fans, and we are too, but there's some people that will, anything they touch, anything AEW, I'm buying it. Anything that gets the TK, seal of approval, I'm buying it. So it definitely helped them with the getting the pay-per-views over for sure. So, all right, at number 4, we have Ric Flair's last match and the return of StarCast. So let's see. You had this at number 8. I had it at number 4. Ends up at 4. We had a big log jam in the middle here. So Flair's last match. So I thought about it. I got to attend 3 of the things on our list, which is incredible.
Oh, well, that's awesome. But you forgot about the one time, so it don't count. No.
Yeah. Anyway, we're not talking about that. So I got to attend 3 things. This one was in Nashville. It wasn't in Chicago. But in general, because I'm in Chicago, I'm one lucky SOB. I'll say that for sure.
Very much so.
The weekend of July 31st, it was in Nashville. Conrad Thompson devotes StarCast weekend to his father-in-law, basically. 6,800 attend the show. It was not a sellout, but 6,800 attend made it one of the biggest, I think the second biggest indie in the history of the States, basically. I think, but right behind the original All In. So Flair does his last match, allegedly. He does little. They did all these angles going into it with Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett that were fantastic. Got, the internet buzzing about these angles. It got people paying attention to this show. So Flair teams with Andrade, his son-in-law. Andrade does, we went into it thinking Andrade's going to do all the heavy lifting. Flair will do just a couple signature bumps. Flair was actually in the ring at 73 years old, way more than he should have been. He does a lot more than he should have done. He blades. He ends up winning the match in 27 minutes, and he was in there for a good part of it, selling. So there was great talent on the show. We had Phoenix, Bandito, Laredo Kid, Black Taurus in a great match. We had Josh Alexander representing TNA against Jacob Fatu representing MLW. And we had the Briscoes over the Von Erich. So it was a fun weekend. The roast was really fun. SummerSlam itself, we got to go to SummerSlam that weekend too in Nashville. And then the New Japan show on Saturday afternoon. So we've said it all along. We're big fans of Conrad. So what he puts together is always a good time. So Ric Flair's last match in StarCast at number 4.
I thought it was, big deal. Everyone was talking about it. They first started with Steamboat. Steamboat has finally told the story. He just didn't want to be there in case Flair died. And that's what all of it. Flair says he got dehydrated during the match is the reason he was shaking so bad. If you've ever been dehydrated, it looks exactly like that.
Yeah.
You're shaking real bad and you can't really control what's going on. So it was, I think, and I said this when you reviewed this match, and we already talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I would have been there live, I would have been marking out big time.
Yeah.
Watching it on television, I watched it live on television, but with the pay-per-view, but it just felt cringy a lot of times. If I'd been there live, I wouldn't have. I don't think there would have been as much cringe, but there was some cringe there with Flair. I think we'll see him again in the ring before he dies. So
it was a moment. People were on their feet almost the entire match.
Right.
It was just the emotion in the room that night, and I hate to say room because it's an arena, but it was just the emotion that was taking place while it was going on that just really did make it a moment. And I remember, when John and I were planning the trip down there for that weekend, we weren't going to go to the card, and he's like, "Are we crazy? We got to go to that card. How are you going to be in Nashville that weekend?"
Yeah, I didn't know why. You told me that, and I was like, "Are you nuts?" So
initially they hadn't added an undercard to it when they first.
Oh, and they also didn't have any more seats initially, so it was not a lot of seats.
So I mean, before they started adding this basically indie all-star lineup underneath them, I'm like, oh, now I for sure want to go because there's actually a card underneath it. It's not just the one match. So anyway, that's our fourth story. So number 3 is, let's see, you had it at number 4, I had it at 6. I don't know the math. It ends up at number 3. We have Cody Rhodes defecting to WWE and his injury. So Cody and Brandy Rhodes, we got to mention Brandy, of course. For me, 2 of the founders and architects of AEW, they had their contracts quietly end at the end of 2020. Well, he was. You got to say he was.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So they had their contracts quietly end at the end of 2021. They announced their departures from AEW on Valentine's Day. So the obvious speculation is that they're going to, or at least he's going to WWE. Cody and Tony Khan agree that they're not going to reveal the causes. They have yet to say anything about why did he leave? Was he forced out? Was he not going to be booked well? Whatever. Cody indeed does debut at WrestleMania as Rollins' mystery opponent, which was the worst kept secret in the world at that time. But he comes in, what was surprising is that he came in as exactly the same character, the American Nightmare, same kind of gear. The music was the same. He has great matches. He's programmed with Seth Rollins exclusively.
Love the Mania entrance.
The Mania match.
Love that.
Yep. The entrance was a moment again. But he's programmed with Rollins. He does great matches with him. Cody, interestingly, wins every single one of them. Tears his pec, still competes in the Hell in the Cell match in June. Just an amazing, gutsy performance. Like, watching that match, I did have people asking me, do you think that was makeup? Do you think it was? I'm like, fuck no, that's real. I'm sorry, that's fucking real. So Cody will play into 2023's plans. Will he be the one who beats Roman? So Cody defecting to WWE is the third biggest story of the year.
Now, and it's funny that people would even ask that because you don't put makeup on something like that unless you did an angle for it. Did they do something where he got jumped and they hurt his arm? Yeah, you might see something like that. I was I did not. I was getting tired of Cody in AEW. I just did not like the direction they would go. He would just say like one thing against somebody, and then they'd have a ladder versus hair versus mask match within the next week. He was doing a lot of stuff where you think he'd kill himself. Um, Always a hard worker. Always been a fan of his, even when he was painted up like Goldust. But excited when he came out for Mania. The interest was awesome. I'm excited to see what we do with, and the crowd was so into him. The story is that Cody wants to win the belt for his dad. And so if we get that story and he does win it, it's going to be fantastic in 2023. So yeah, number 3, guys, I can't see, there's 2 right in front right here. But that is real important, and will work into not only next year, but the years to come. At what will Cody ever go back to AEW? All that stuff will be interesting to see.
Interesting in the sense that the AEW fans were pretty on him and booing him pretty severely as a babyface before he left.
Oh, yeah.
And then he comes into WWE and just nothing but like
he was booked. Support, I mean, I said it a lot of times. I hated the way he was booked. I just and that's why they were. It is really a hardcore crowd. You know that with AEW, it's a little different. So I know why he was. I just did not like him in AEW.
Interesting. Big fan. The differences in the fan reactions. I think really interesting.
Very much so.
All right, at number 2, it is the Scrum.
What?
So where do we begin with the Scrum? So the Neckbeards are talking about media scrums instead of the demos because that was their topic of choice before. So after a decent, you're not a neckbeard. So
I got one.
After but you aren't one. So after a decent all-out pay-per-view, and that's as far as I can go, is say it was decent pay-per-view in Chicago Labor Day weekend. CM Punk comes out and shoots on the EVPs, the executive vice presidents, shoots on Colt Cabana having a checking account with his mother and so on, in front of the wrestling media Illuminati like Dave Meltzer, Izzy, and AJ. So a fight may or may not have broken out. A door may or may not have been kicked down. Kenny Omega may or may not have been bitten. We don't know. Larry the Dog may or may not have lost some teeth. But anyway, Punk is injured. He's immediately stripped of the title the next day or 2 days later, whatever. Title eventually gets back to Jon Moxley. Punk is out. The EVPs are suspended. AEW completely derails and loses momentum. I mean, it was already losing some momentum, but that really killed the momentum there because of the departures and the lost time for the Bucks and Punk and so on. They get some of the momentum back at the end of the year as the Punks and Omega come back. But the Scrum and all of the offshoot side effects of the Scrum at number 2.
I remember when people started talking about this, I actually went to Google and typed the word in. I'm like, wait, I don't know what they're talking about. Scrum to me, and I may be totally wrong. What rugby when they all go together? That's what. So that's what I was thinking. I was like, what the hell is this all about? Man, I wish, you know what, Lance? I wish we would have had somebody that was at the Scrum and we could have had them. We could have had them on the show to talk about it, but I don't know anybody. Meltzer won't answer my phone calls anymore, so
I'll reach out to Izzy.
But yeah, just one of those things where you're just shaking your head. And I made mention, and I don't know if it'll happen. There's so much going on right now. But I said that the outcome of this, that the story behind all this would be if Punk went back to the WWE because of the childness, that was going on backstage. I don't think you said picked up. I still am of the belief, and you could go back. You'd have to, we have to get somebody that studies ratings, but I don't think they went anywhere. It's like they have that core base of fans, and that's it. We're not going to get, maybe we'll get 1.2, maybe, but you got that 900,000 fans that's going to watch them. I think the television's better with the Bucks and Kenny Omega because you're going to have 2. If they're in a match, they're going to be one really good match, or there's going to be 2 really good matches, possibly 3 if they're doing singles. So that's a real good part about it. And I like what they're doing with them. But it's just one of those things, except that stupid song But it's one of those things we will always remember. We will always remember CM Punk for sitting there, eating
With
whatever he was eating and
muffins
drinking.
and the Spindrift. Yeah, the
And,
Spindrift six-pack.
TK sitting there looking like he. I'm not going to say that. Oh, but he was. He's on Big Bang Theory, by the way. I'll show. I'll send that picture to you here in a minute. All right, let's go to number one. Drum roll, please.
One.
Drum roll. Come on,
should I
get
get
drum
it?
roll.
Like,
There we go. There we go.
So, all right, at number one, we have Vince retires amid Wall Street Journal articles. So now, then, forever together until suntan parlor employees, masseuses, and former employees revealed that they'd been sexually harassed by Vince over the years. Vince had paid off, allegedly, paid off 4 women to the tune of $12 million. Vince announces his retirement in July. Stephanie comes back after she was kind of departed the company. She comes back. Her and Nick Khan are the co-CEOs, and Triple H, or H3 as we insiders call him,
That's
Triple
right.
H takes over creative. So here's the thing. Vince is 77 years old. It's okay to retire. Retire. You're 77. It makes sense, So the TV made a bit of a turnaround. Some of the TV shows started getting better after Vince walked away. So this story is continuing to evolve, but it is the number one story, the fact that Vince McMahon walked away from WWE amidst all of these scandals and all these allegations, and all of these, flirtatious, whatever endeavors were going on between Vince and these women, whether any of them were true or not true, whatever, there was $12 million paid out. So now there's all kinds of lawsuits because he's resuming power again in 2023. So Vince walking away, though, and retiring is the number one story of the year for us.
I was one of those days where you couldn't believe it happened. I am a huge fan of documentaries about businesses that mainly, most of them are scams where they make lots of money, and then they usually get the CEO out first. Here's a guy who started the whole company who's actually a big scammer, blah, blah, blah. And when they did that to Vince, I was like, he can't come back. He can't come back. And I remember P3 Radio saying, he owns blah, blah, blah. I know he's going to come back. They were big. And I was like, Josh and Rich are so stupid. Why are they so stupid? But this will be the story in 2023. I sent you a note. I said, it's got to be the 2022 story, and it might be in the 2023. The documentary, when they make this, if they make a movie or legit, is all the stuff that was going on with Stephanie McMahon. When Stephanie left, there was memos around where they were against her. They were saying bad stuff about her. Then when Vince when he retired, as they called it,
right.
There was talk that it was Triple H, and Stephanie kind of pushed him out. And not Tony Khan, but the other Khan, Nick Khan. So here you got that story. As soon as Vince comes back, Stephanie leaves again. So that all of that's going to be huge. This 2022, Vince leaving looks like it's going to shape the business more than we ever thought. So be excited to see what happens. I hope it's exciting. Put it that way.
The way it comes across now, in retrospect, 6 months later, of him coming back, is that he knew he had to take a break. He knew he had to distance himself from the company for a short amount of time. It ended up being 6 months because he needed the heat to die down. That's what it looks like now. And now that the heat has died down a little bit in terms of the media, he feels it's safe to come back. Now, whether either of us agree with that or not, but that's his mentality, and I think that's the mindset of, the coast is clear, let me take the reins back over again.
And he had the power to do it. That's something that a lot of CEOs or people in his position did not have the power to do that. They could walk in and say, I'm taking back over my company, and everybody goes, we'll vote you out again. It's no big deal. But just crazy. And this, we probably talked about this on WTF also because it was a big story kind of with all the stuff that was going on around it. And then, like I said, we'll be talking about the other part. Y'all join us this upcoming year. Let me tell you, 2023 has already started. Fun.
Hell, in the beginning of February, we'll have the WTF where I'm sure one of these stories is going to make WTF for January for sure.
All right, guys, we're going to end the feed here on Twitter and Facebook. We're going to remove ourselves. And then we will be going to Patreon only, and
Honorables.
with honorables.
Stay with us.
Yep. Because guess what, Lance? Same bad time, same bad channel, the best little wrestling podcast in the business. Be there! And as everyone knows, I love my mama.
And as everyone knows, I have fun everywhere I go, especially when I can hit 3 things in the top 10 news stories of the year.
Remember when I hit 3 things?